All right, back on the conversation. Max Burns is going to join us again. He's, of course, a national political columnist for the Daily Beast. He does a great job of writing about politics in a real way there. He's also a Democratic strategist and the founder of Third Degree Strategies. All right, Max, you wrote about Manchin and Sinema and how they're holding up the entire Democratic agenda. So let's get right to it. We all know now what the overall lay of the land is. And then today from Pelosi, we found out a bunch of new things and I want to talk that through with you. So as everybody remembers, there's two bills. Let's call it the $1 trillion bill and the $3.5 trillion bill. The $1 trillion bill is the one that's backed by corporations and bipartisan. And the $3.5 trillion one is the more progressive, but Biden bill, right? And they're even calling it Build Back Better now. So that means, boy, he's really taking ownership of it. That's good, okay? So in the House, they're saying, the progressives are saying you got to get them both, otherwise we're not voting for the corporate back one, okay? Now today Pelosi came out and said, we're gonna vote on both on Thursday and they're gonna pass. Okay, now Max, it looks like they're switching the rules on us. It looks like Pelosi before was seeming to agree with progressives that the $3.5 trillion one has to pass the Senate first, otherwise it's pointless. And then the House passes it, and then the House agrees to pass the corporate one, right? But now it looks like what Pelosi is saying is, now what Pelosi seems to be saying now is, no, we'll both pass both versions, the $1 trillion and the $3.5 trillion one at the same time from the House, and hope that the Senate passes the $3.5 trillion one. Am I misreading that? Because that seemed like what she was saying.
No, this has been a bit of a concerning backpedal here. The plan originally was for this to pass through the Senate, for the Senate to do its job and bring the House legislation. And it's important to note that it's not progressives putting the House or Biden in this position. This is the progressives pushing Joe Biden's agenda. It was Joe Biden's initial preference to have the Senate pass these both and have them both voted on together in the House. That was the way this process was supposed to work. And progressives, I think, are rightfully concerned that if they step forward on this in the House, that the Senate is just going to make all of that work for nothing. And given the way the Senate's behaved, that's a very reasonable concern to have.
No, there's like, okay, Max, so you're more connected to Washington and the media, et cetera. So everybody understands that voting for it in the $3.5 trillion, I'm sorry, the $1 trillion version, the bipartisan infrastructure plan. Yeah. Voting for that in the House means that we're definitely not going to get the $3.5 trillion one. Do the progressives understand that, you think, in Congress? There's no way Manchin and Sinema are going to let it pass. It's all a giant, obvious ambush. Does everybody in Washington know that, or are they still pretending, oh, the Senate's going to do good work on it and eventually they'll pass it?
Oh no, progressives certainly know that. We saw just today there was an op-ed with Ilhan Omar, Katie Porter, Congressman Jayapal, pointing out that this is not the agreement that progressives made, that their votes should not be taken for granted on this, that they were promised a certain way of doing this process, and they will not have the rug pulled out from under them. And I think progressives have made a very strong line that the White House certainly takes seriously and has tried to reassure them on this. But it's for the best that someone is at least pushing to have real progressive things included in these bills.
And no question about that. So Pelosi then says that the $1 trillion one is going to pass the House. She says, I would not bring it to a vote if I didn't think it was going to pass. Well, either the progressives are going to fold, or she doesn't know what she's doing, or she has secret Republican votes that she's going to use to pass it instead. So which of those three do you think it is?
And that's a real possibility. The third part especially, only that Republicans have by and large started backing away from their support of the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It's doubtful now that even a fraction who originally signed on to this will still vote for it. I mean, the House is whipping votes against it as we speak. So this may be a position where Nancy Pelosi is simply thinking that the progressives are not serious on this line. And I think she is badly mistaken if that's the case.
God, I am almost never surprised in politics. Politics is actually super simple. Just see who has more money, they win 100% of the time. Okay, but in this case, I mean, because look, let's break down those three options. I think that it's a joke that Pelosi is a master legislator. I think she's passed almost nothing of import other than a Heritage Foundation written healthcare plan when they had overwhelming majorities. So, but it's true that she cares a lot about her own record and legacy, etc. So she's very unlikely to say it's going to pass unless she has the votes. So that is very unusual. So if she's mistaken about having the votes, that would be fairly unprecedented, right?
That would be, and it would be very embarrassing for her. What I know from those I've spoken to on the Hill, members of the Progressive Caucus, there is very little mood right now for further compromise. They feel like they've been to the White House, they've laid out their case again to the president. They've again tried to bring moderates on board, and it's moderates who are backing away. This is a situation where progressives feel they've given up enough. And I've not really heard even whispers within the Progressive Caucus of people breaking away from what has been put forward. So that would shock me quite a bit.
So either it's going to be shocking that it turns out Pelosi didn't know what she was doing on the whip count and gets embarrassed, and that's the last thing she wants to be, because that's a standard politician like her. Her reputation in Washington is the thing she cares most about by an order of magnitude. So either that's gonna happen on Thursday and we're all gonna be surprised by that, or progressives are gonna buckle after they said 1,000 times that they wouldn't, and that is going to be also relatively shocking. And I mean, it'll be an apocalypse on the progressive side if they do that. And they will lose their base completely. The base will be furious. I don't know if they understand how furious they would be, right? Or the third option.
Yeah, it would be apocalyptic.
Yeah, or the third option. So already those two options are like, whoa, both of those would be unbelievable, right? The only option remaining is Pelosi goes, progressives, I was just messing with you the whole time. I've got my Republican buddies, Cheney and Kinzinger, etc. And they're gonna ride to the rescue here, and we're gonna call it bipartisan. We're gonna just pass the corporate version. And then maybe we'll pass the 3.5 trillion one, but not 3.5 as she explained, but lower in the House. But it's all a joke anyway. The Senate's never gonna pass it, and we're done with you people. The more we talk about it, the more I fear that that's the most likely outcome.
And the joke in that case would be on Pelosi to have stabbed progressives in the back on this. Progressives, I think we can feel confident they have little reason to back down, because the positions they're pushing for in this bill are wildly popular, 60%, 70% approval. In some cases, some of these spending areas have support of Republicans as well as Democratic voters. This is a position where progressives are trying to bring the Democratic Party to a winning position. And if Nancy Pelosi tries to moderate her way out of that, that'll be for her loss and the Democratic Party's loss.
Yeah, but they've been playing that game for 20 years. I'm telling you, the more we talk about it, the more that sounds like, oh yeah, I should say 40 years. That's the path that fits the pattern of Washington far better than the other two options that we talked about. So then let's talk about this. Is anybody talking about, writing about how many Republicans there are that would vote for this, the corporate-backed one? Do they? And if Jayapal said they have 50 progressives willing to vote no, I would be shocked by that number. Yep. Do we know what the actual number of progressives are?
So I've looked into this a little bit, specifically on the Republican side. There were Republicans in the Problem Solvers Caucus, as they call it. It's a moderate or conservative front group that provides cover for essentially conservative Democrats to stall the Democratic agenda. And a lot of those problem solver Republicans initially supported the Biden infrastructure plan. They've now almost universally withdrawn their support. So if Pelosi's pulling Republican votes on this, it's coming from somewhere other than that, which is why I'm skeptical that she has those. As far as the progressives, if they're breaking ranks, so far nobody has said so publicly, or given any indication to the press in DC that there was any kind of disunity in the message. So that's either very good messaging or very good unity.
It's the first drama in 20 years of doing the Young Turks where I'm not positive what's going to happen. So Thursday, it seems like Pelosi should lose the vote, but she's right that she never brings it up unless she's already knows she's going to win, because that would be embarrassing. If she doesn't lose the vote, that means one of two terrible things happen. Either the progressives crumbled and their base hates them for a long, long time, or Pelosi betrayed them. And all right, so then let's stay on that, because again, that's by far the most likely outcome. So last question: if Pelosi screws over the progressives and does a deal with the Republicans, and they never pass the larger bill, I mean, again, passing it through the House means nothing, okay? And she says, well, what? I passed it through the House. Do you think progressives will finally get the message that Pelosi is not on their side?
I think they will, and I think that it will be a hugely unfortunate thing to project to the country, which, like I said, largely supports these progressive positions, to say that Democrats would rather work with Republicans who want to gut almost everything the Build Back Better agenda stands for in order to get something passed that will then be gutted beyond passability in the Senate. This willingness to abandon and silence and sort of marginalize progressives, even as they're working harder than anyone else to pass this agenda, baffles me. And it really is a mistake that Democrats are making to just leave votes on the table.
Yeah, no, now I'm almost positive she's gonna get Republicans. That's the mistake they've been making for 40 years. That fits into a pattern. The other two do not fit into a pattern. So we'll find out on Thursday. All right, Max Burns wrote about this at the Daily Beast. You should check it out. He's a smart guy, as you can tell here, and has got good information from DC. Max, thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching the Young Turks. Really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat, emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.